let me welcome you to the conversation segment of the Signature Show this Sunday. As Vin Martin and I said in the introduction, we'll be looking at issues from the U.S. presidential election. Of course, it's a new dawn, a fresh president for the U.S. But before then, campaigns, issues were canvassed. Before then, the two candidates have made promises. Now, this afternoon, I have two intellectuals who will help me look at those issues in relation to Nigerian politics. On my left is Dr. Philip Afaha, Head of Department of History and Diplomatic Studies, University of Abuja. Dr. Afaha, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Also on my right now is Dr. Muktar. Imam is a lecturer in the Department of International Relations and Diplomacy of Base University. Dr. Muktar, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's a long time we had a conversation.
Yes, it's been a while.
Now, Dr. Afaha, let me start with you.
Yeah.
If you look at the campaign by the two candidates in the U.S., you could hold them to certain issues. One, Trump is talking about keeping the jobs back in America. Two, he's insisting on continuing to build his wall to ensure that illegal immigrants don't come in. He went as far as saying that he was not going to open the borders to extremist Islamist terrorists to come and kill Americans. He is clear that he's a Christian. He's not shying away from it. Biden is saying, I will tax the rich to make certain things available for the poor. I will develop and protect the working class. I will protect the farmers. These two gentlemen can be identified with specific promises for which the electorate can hold them to account subsequently. Doc, I want you to compare this to the way our own politicians make their promises and how far we, the electorate, can hold them accountable.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think at this juncture it is very apt for us to look at the way the American electorate perceive politics and the way we perceive politics as Africans. Let me not only say as Nigerians. You have noticed over the years that whenever we are having elections, our politicians are coming out with one wish list. I'll give you water, I'll give you good roads, I will improve your electricity, I will renovate schools, I will do health and those other things. And if you notice, the American politicians are not talking about those things. They have gone beyond those elementary issues, elementary needs of the electorate. Now, the American electorate are sophisticated because they have had democracy for over 200 years. So they have learned over time to hold their leaders to account. This is what you promise, and this is what we expect you to deliver. And the people representing the electorate, who are the parliamentarians, are always at grasp at the feelings of the electorate. But if you notice here, there seems to be a disconnect. Do we have a relationship with our parliamentarians? No. We elected them. But you notice that immediately you elect them into the National Assembly or in our state House of Assemblies or in local government councils, you notice that you have lost them. In fact, what is remaining a little is in the National Assembly. At the State House of Assembly and the local government, the parliament has died. The legislature is no longer there. It has been eaten up by the powers of the state governors and some of those cabals at that level. At the national, you notice that the powers, the vibrancy of the legislature is waning. Within the past 5 years, we have noticed a slide in the powers, in the vibrancy of our legislature. So which means the people do not have any link with government. So government can promise this, and at the end of the day, it is not doing that. And the people, is not as if they are forgetful. They are powerless. The Nigerian electorate are powerless.
And we soon find out whether they're powerless. Now, Dr. Muktar, if the outcome of this US election could rightly be interpreted as the consequence of delivered or undelivered promise, or the consequence of promises better accepted on the part of either Trump or Biden, can the outcome of a Nigerian election be said to reflect how the electorate has voted in terms of the promises that were fulfilled and that were not fulfilled, or the promises made that attract the electorate?
Well, thank you. That's a very important question. You see, the thing is, these two political climes are actually peculiar in their nature. They're peculiar in their history, and they're peculiar in their evolution. They're also peculiar in terms of the social psychological standing of the individuals, who in this case are the electorates in these two different climes. They're also peculiar in terms of the relationship between the sub and superstructure in these two different climes. You find that in one scenario, the United States as A, the relationship has always been along the line of citizen leadership relations. This is what we have always seen as a result of the long-standing democratic consolidation within the years from its independence in 1774. But in our own case, when you look at the history, for example, you would find that the pattern of relation between the sub and superstructure has been predicated upon ruler-subject relationship. Perhaps as a result of the military incursions we've had over the years and so on and so forth. That has basically shaped our psyche along the line of being subjects rather than being citizens. So going forward, you also find that as far as the political culture, the political socialization is concerned in this climb, this is not just peculiar to Nigeria. This is something that happens in most new states as a result of a number of issues. Colonialism cannot be taken away from all of that. There is no doubt about that colonialism has some of its perks, but then, of course, that incursion basically brought it put a spanner to the wheel of some of the events that were taking shape at that time. But that's something entirely different. But here again, you look at the political culture, the political socialization, like I was trying to say, of individuals or electorates within the Nigerian context. You will come to see that of individual and also those in position of authority, because those in position of authority are gotten from the people. Now you find that the electoral system, the political equation, the democratic process doesn't really align with what we have in modern liberal democratic context in the case of the United States, for example. Our politics, our elections, our political parties, first and foremost, our political parties are more or less political movements. This is where we need to draw the line between the consolidation political parties and, of course, reconciliatory political parties, and understand that our political parties are still at that form, all right, of trying to gain footing, but yet we trade wrongly. We have been erroneously moving in the wrong direction over the years, and our political parties have refused to stop and look inward to see how they can rectify the problems that exist within the party structures themselves. And why is this happening? Because we are in a particular scenario or society where both the leaders and the followers have basically failed to understand and put in perspective each other's obligations, each other's rights, and so on and so forth. So you find that a politician gives you money or gives you borehole, and he has done so much. So those very trivial, those very elementary, minimal things mean so much to us as a result of where we're coming from. These are some of the things that have shaped our political education. And so it is reporting, it is telling on our electoral process. And that's why our politicians don't even care about setting agenda, bringing plan. Because we, the people, have proven to them that we are like you. People of low intellectual standing. We can't even hold, we don't even know. If you don't know, what will you hold to account for?
If we don't know. No, look, Dr. Afaha, the political parties, are they not supposed to help in creating the kind of followership that understands what you're offering and can hold them to account? are the parties doing that job?
The parties in Nigeria are not doing that job, unfortunately. Why? Because in the true sense of the word, we don't have political parties in Nigeria.
I'll abridge here. We don't have political parties. Please, I want you also to address how we can invent and reinvent political parties to perform this function.
Yes, political parties naturally must grow out of ideologies. They must be what a group of people believe in, which ideologies they are pursuing. In Nigeria, what we have is a group of people coming together just for the purpose of grabbing power, irrespective of what the bridges they have to jump or whatever they are going to do. The essence is to grab power. And we notice that immediately after grabbing this power, they jump boat the following day. And they jump back before the tenure is over. And so it is difficult for them to actually be able to go into mobilizing the public, into educating, creating awareness, getting people to be more involved in the political process. For you to get people to be involved in the political process means that you are seeing beyond just grabbing power and sitting in the office. You are trying to build a group, just like people set up churches. You are trying to build a group. You are trying to implant in the people a spirit, an ideology for them to believe in, for them to be carried along, for them to know what you are believing in. But what we have in Nigeria, unfortunately, is that we as citizens, the electorate, see those in government as people who are going there to grab wealth using political offices. And because that is how they see them, it is difficult for them to convince the electorate into believing into what they are. They don't even believe in anything. If you can see, 80% of the people in APC today are members of PDP. 80%, about 80% also of members of PDP are members of APC. You see one man like here in the afternoon, in the evening you see him there. So how will you be able to mobilize? How will you be able to communicate to the electorate? Follow me, I believe in green. Let's stand by green. In the Second Republic, let me not talk about the first because I was actively involved in the Second Republic as a child enthusiast. I noticed that there are some of these parties, like the Awolowo party then, the UPN. You notice that what the man was preaching was a socialist incline, and he actually convinced people, even at the rural areas, who were not good at speaking English, into understanding the tenet of a socialist kind of government. And people bought into it because it rhymed well with the communal living system that we practice. Yes. And MPN, on the other hand, also tried to push it to the people to believe that this is how conservatism works. And a lot of people also align with it. Now, you notice that after that Second Republic, the military came in and started experimenting two-party system, this and that. As at now, we don't have ideology. So it is difficult. If you are mobilizing people now, what are you going to tell them as a party? What is APC going to tell the Nigerian electorate now? What is PDP going to tell the Nigerian electorate other than saying, I want to grab power by 2023?
Well, there are a number of issues. I want to come to you.
Yes.
Are there not enough experiences, enough challenges, enough objectives to achieve within the Nigerian Nigerian society around which ideals can aggregate and therefore begin to develop what Dr. Afaha is referring to as parties emerging from ideologies? Ideologies emerge from social experiences. Don't we have enough around which ideologies can aggregate, and then the how of solving political problems becomes the issue?
Well, I think in our journey thus far, from our democratic journey, from 1999, I think that's when we would say we would have consolidated democracy. I was trying to create that distinction. So it's more or less the current democratic journey as a result of the incursions in the past. The reality is we should be able to, at this juncture, have found a footing that allows us to gravitate towards one another into harnessing and developing a sense of ideology. But there are a lot of issues, or a number of issues, that have basically permeated the system that has not allowed these ideals we speak about to thrive, to rear their heads. we are still in that system where it is the old hands, these individuals who broke the system, these people who midwifed the nationalist parties and individuals who had those sense of belonging and ideology, and then took away the system and ran with it. These individuals are the ones who still superintend as far as our political systems are concerned. These individuals are the ones who still constitute the elites. Remember circulation of elites? They are still the ones who still constitute themselves around power. And so it's not going to be entirely easy for people who have ideology. Remember the words of PLO Lumumba in Kenya when he contested elections, and he said, I went and I was bombarding them with ideology. Unbeknownst to me, it was about the man with the deep pockets. So here we are in this exact type of scenario. And so you find that it becomes difficult for the people who actually have this notion, this level of understanding, to be able to break through the status quo. Why? Because the status quo actually benefits that 1%, and they want to continue to maintain the status quo. But alas, we have gotten to the point, and I see us moving in that direction, where that awakening is beginning to come. You see, the things that distinguish elections in, or rather democratic systems, one from another, say the ones in the developed climes and we that are here, is the ideological root and the value system. These are some of the things we need to begin to inculcate in ourselves. Yes, some might argue that in our democratic journey was still very young, in our modern or current democratic journey was still very young. The United States has experienced this ceaselessly for a very lengthy period of time. But that's not the case. That's not the case because the Chinese have been able to galvanize certain things and have moved along the line of development far ahead within the space of 40 years. And here we are. So, and if you're talking about resources, China doesn't have what we have. If you're talking about a human population, of course, we're the largest economy in Africa. 1 out of every 4 Africans is a Nigerian. So in that context as well, you see that we have a lot of pitfalls. The same applies to our democratic system and our political structure. So yes, these things are there. The individuals who should be able to drive this are also there. Recall, in the words of Chairman Mao, he asserted, and I quote, that from a long-term perspective, the real power belongs to, first he says that all reactionaries are paper tigers. And when he's talking about reactionaries, he's talking about leaders. He says all reactionaries are paper tigers. And that from a long-term point of view, the real power belongs to the ordinary people. Now, this is where the question is, do the ordinary people understand what powers they wield? Because until we begin to have that understanding, I have always argued that education, being educated and being lettered are two different things. We have a lot of reading and writing illiterates working amidst us. And these are the people who constitute a chunk of our problems. Religious chauvinists and bigots. These are the people who are unrepentant ethnic warlords and try to instill these ideals and ideas in other people.
They call them the ideals.
Exactly. So basically, yes, of course. So basically, these are people who constitute, a chunk of our problems. These are people who will not allow people look beyond these primordial sentiments. And these are some of the things that are dragging us back. These are some of the things that will not make us understand where we are. It is very, very important that people are educated. When I say educated, it doesn't mean they have to go through the 4 walls of institution of learning. And until people know what their rights are, what at least the budget is, it is going to be extremely difficult for you to go. Do you know how many, the number of Nigerians who know what the security vote in this country is to state governors? We don't know. So until this information is out there, until people become informed, until they become aware, until they begin to
conscious that it is
that
right
consciousness has to be awakened. So yes, in our case, we're still dragging behind. A whole lot is still missing, but there's room for growth. There's room for improvement, because when you look at our elections, for example, in 2015, Nigeria conducted one of the elections that was adjudged one of the freest and fairest in the world at a time where the United States was struggling with the outcome of an election. And look where the United States is today. At least some of the weaknesses, the lacunas within the United States society, beyond even its politics, has been exposed. Right?
You have introduced a new dimension, and Dr. Afaha, I'm coming to you.
Yes.
Because he's introduced something quite interesting. Today, Americans who are supporting Trump are demonstrating in the street. Today, Trump himself is questioning the American democratic process. Today, Trump is questioning the electoral workers, whether they can be trusted to be impartial. These are issues, as Dr. Muktar has said, which are thrown up every day in Nigeria's electoral process. Fraud, pardon, manipulation. It remains ballot box snatching. How do you think that this will hurt the American democratic process? What Trump has introduced?
Yes. You see, in every human society, we have these fault lines. And it goes to show that the human nature is the same. Irrespective of where you are seeing the human being, the psychology is the same. Depends on whether it had been upgraded to a certain level or whether certain circumstances that are making people to behave in a certain way. If you were asked in exams that Americans are going to behave in the way they are behaving in 2020 in their elections, I think we would have all failed that examination. But interestingly, it's popping up. In fact, in the social media, people are even making jest of the American system that Nigeria should also write to Americans that we are going to ban them from coming to Nigeria for misbehaving during their elections. Having said that, what I see, the harm that is done to American system is enormous. Because if you look at the personality of Trump, it is not only about the election time. Before Trump came into power, he has been making efforts at tearing down the American political system. Tearing down in the true sense of the word. Not only criticizing, demonizing, and making nonsense of the entire system. From the Obama birth issue, we jumped into other issues up to this election. Every aspect of American life that President Trump found threatening to his own person, he has gone as far as tearing it to shreds. And the Americans have been playing along, because in their democracy, when somebody is dead, there's nothing you can do about it until the tenure is over. But the thing is reaching a peak during these elections. Nobody is saying that an election is going to be 100% perfect. Elections are organized by human beings with all their foibles. But if you monitor what is going on in America currently under this election, you notice that the noise coming out from Trump camp is much more than the issues on the ground. The fault lines are there, but I think there is an attempt to really destroy, to exacerbate, to destroy the system. And that is not good for American democracy. It weakens Americans' position in global affairs, and it also helps to tear the American society apart, much beyond where it already is. In fact, the situation in America, the situation, the relations, human relations in America currently is such that it's so scary. So scary to the extent that even if and when a candidate, when a winner will be announced under this election, it will take such a person almost half a decade to see how to sort out American society, some of the issues, because some of these issues have been weaponized. Not only raising these issues, weaponize these issues, these social issues, to such an extent that I saw on the social media people acquiring guns in the run-off to this election. And that is dangerous for the American society. So I see there is a very dangerous game being played out in America, and it's going to affect them. Not only affecting America, it has made America to lose that respect. The respect of America being able to call a country like Nigeria or Ghana or Sierra Leone, oh, look, what you are doing during your election is not proper. Because now you have already messed in the marketplace, market square, and your children are laughing at you. Okay. So what moral capital do you have again to call these smaller countries to order when they mess up? So that is the issue now.
Dr. Muktar, that's a worry, a very big worry. I'm also more worried that a number of Nigerian politicians, a number of intellectuals and pundits will always make reference to the American system as an example which Nigeria should copy, as a democracy that we should emulate. How does it hurt Nigeria's democracy. That country towards which it looks seems to be exposing is behind.
Yes, I think the more appropriate way would be, how does it hurt global politics? Because
you're concerned about
Nigeria. Yes, that's why I said the more appropriate. Because the reality is, the United States is not just a self-acclaimed hegemon, but then it has proven to a significant extent to have had a toll on global politics. You remember the writings of Francis Fukuyama. You remember, Samuel Huntington talking about this is the most advanced democracy in the world, and so on and so forth. And the entire world bought to that narrative, and it became a rhetoric that we were taking and playing with and running with. And so it became a thing with us to say the United States is the most advanced, and therefore the world should look to it, to learn from it, and so on and so forth. But given the current circumstances, the polarization, I said this is not happening now. Trump started this with Hillary. He did this. He awakened this monster so that he could gain himself the Republican ticket. This was the rhetoric he played out to the American people. And of course, because all humans have their fallibilities and gullibility, he was able to galvanize the people who bought into the idea of the ultra-nationalist, white supremacist line of thinking. And so that got him to office, and that monster he awakened. And I said this in 2016, that look, what Trump has done to get to right to power is an irreparable damage that perhaps could haunt the United States for another generation. It's not something, like Dr. said, that will take a few years for somebody to fix. Biden, I don't envy Biden his job. He has a task. He might not understand domestic politics, foreign policy, military, global image. Perception is important in politics, whether domestic or international. So what Trump has succeeded in doing basically sends a signal to the entire world, including politicians in Nigeria as well, who basically hold the American political system or democratic structure to high standards. It has proven that there's a possibility of a fallibility in this structure. So long as you're dealing with humans, and there is always the tendency, of having this kind of pitfalls and so on and so forth. So it also tells us that we can also harmonize ourselves and try to pick ourselves from where we are to move along that direction of becoming an envy of the world. It's not impossible. We can actually attain these feats.
It's not impossible. My last quick question, and I think Dr. Afaha, you answered, and Dr. Muktar can also come in. Does this monster, can this Trump monster rear its head in Nigeria? What do Nigerians need to fear?
Yes, this Trump monster, authoritarianism, can rear its head anywhere in the world, not only in Nigeria. I mean, the most sophisticated democracies in the world can actually copy what is playing out now. That is the danger this issue is posing. Somebody wrote that democracy is facing a recession globally. You notice it is not only about Trump. If you check most countries of the world, it is like the leaders within the past 5, 6, 7 years were handpicked. Some people that are behaving in funny manners were handpicked to different countries. It is not only in America. In other countries of the world, I will not mention the countries, but you notice that they tend to behave in a certain manner. And that is not good for democracy. It's actually a dent on democracy globally, both in Africa, in Europe, in America, in Asia. You notice this kind of persons coming up, people who reason this way. The people that naturally are, socially outcast, coming up, take the reins of government and making it the way they think. And I noticed that a whole lot of people are also keying into that fashion. And it's dangerous. Because with the numbers I'm seeing, I've seen the American elections, the voting that is coming out. You notice that if Biden is winning by 2,000 votes, this other one is also losing by 2,000 votes. It's dangerous. It means that it's not only Trump that the world has to contend with. Like Dr. Muktar said, there are a whole lot of people who have
whom do we need to fear now?
bought into that ideology.
Whom do we need to fear? What kind of politician do we need to fear?
Well, there's a saying in Hausa that "Kuocha gauta jachi." Every garden egg is red. Well, as far as fear is concerned, it's an essential tool to greatness. I think we need to take that fear and try to begin to rebuild the consciousness in ourselves, we the people who demand good governance, we need to begin to do that. I'm saying this because you recall when, after the Civil War, Yakubu Gowon called intellectuals and said, let's sit around the table and fashion out the new vista for Nigeria. By the way, he had the opportunity to do that. But kudos to you, Yakubu Gowon. Let's not go into all of that in history. Aluko stood up in that meeting, if my memory serves me right, and he said, Mr. President, while all others were talking about a unitary system with a weak center, a confederate, blah, 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 he said, Mr. President, why don't we create an ideology that will be peculiar to our society, but then again that we can export to the world? So it means that we can actually create a model that the world can copy from. We have the diversity, we have the brains, we have the talent, we have the resources to do all of these things. It is not, like I said, it's not impossible. There is no system that is sacrosanct. None is religious. Every system has its gullibility and fallibility. All you need to do is look at the peculiarity of your society. When the people who designed democracy designed it, they considered the sub and superstructure within their society. Why don't we look inwards and find something? Part of the reasons why in Africa, in new states we were at loggerhead with democracy, recall the words of the late Ali Mazrui, is because we were coming from a place of traditional system of authority, and we had modern liberal democracy imposed on us. So we're in between what he called communocracy. That's where the conflict is. So we need to begin to, an ideology is a package. We must try to package something for ourselves. Yes, we want to be a democracy. We had this democracy long before this Western democracy came about. In the traditional authorities, there was devolution of power, there was separation of power, there was alternative means of dispute resolution. So these things were there, even though we didn't call it a democracy. So we need to begin to take all of that fear and understand that we, the ordinary people, are the ones who have power, and try to dictate what direction this 1% will go in our interest.
In our interest, the fear that we need to harness from the American experience today, let us not forget that fear, that a populist monster can come up anytime. And unless we, the people, determine what we want, he might drag us to even begin to question ourselves, if not all our institutions. In the past 40 minutes or thereabout, I've been conversing with Dr. Philip Afaha, head of Department of History and Diplomatic Studies, University of Abuja. Doc, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I also
had on set Dr. Muktar Imam, who's a lecturer at the Department of International Relations and Diplomacy, Base University. Doc, thank you very much for coming.
I'm humbled, sir.
My name remains Mwabozinjaku. This conversation never ends. Let's meet next Sunday. Good afternoon.